Good afternoon, Robert Scribbler here with the Monday, July 17th session of the OBX wave report, and you will notice that I am here at my home, hanging out in my little surf office here, and been mainly taking a break all day. And I've been taking more breaks lately, and I believe it's because of two things. I've been very high energy lately, and I've gotten a lot of surfing done and a lot of work done at the same time. So some of that is involved in, I guess, burning the candle at both ends and working hard and surfing hard, which is a good thing. But on the flip side, when you do that, you can burn yourself out. But I believe that there's another factor involved in my current state of lower energy, and it's the heat. It is very, very hot and humid here in the Outer Banks. And I'm finding that being out, and I'm outside quite a lot, both by surfing and, I do a lot of driving. So, being out in that hot and humid environment, even if you're moving in and out of a relatively climate controlled vehicle, can really kind of wear you down. The humidity itself is almost like a wall, and you've got, temperatures in the upper 80s with humidity in the range of 80 to 90%. So you get these feels like temperatures in the range of about upper 90s, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And when you walk out into it, it literally feels like you're just kind of walking into this like wall of heat. And over time, it can like beat you down. It can sap your energy. It can have a negative effect on your immune system. And so for me, I'm not as able to keep up the same pace of activity that I was when conditions were cooler and less humid. And I know this is a surf report, but I also do, as you know, a lot of talk about climate. And this extreme heat and humidity that many of us are feeling, in fact, fully one third of the United States right now is under heat advisory. And there are certain areas like Phoenix, Arizona, areas of Texas, where they're experiencing heat deaths and an influx of heat injuries to numerous hospitals, which have been reported across the nation. So it's a very dangerous state of affairs. It's not a normal state of affairs. And we're experiencing extreme heat, not just in the United States, but in parts of Asia, parts of Europe as well. And this is driven by climate change, which is driven by fossil fuel burning. And fossil fuel burning and climate change also threaten our coastlines through sea level rise, more intense storm systems that come out of the ocean environment and hammer the coastlines, and through the ocean acidification and ocean heating that harms sea life that so much of our economies here on the coast are reliant on, as well as having a nice state of beach where people can enjoy themselves. So yeah, I mean, climate change has been in the news quite a lot lately, and I'm going to talk more about it later on in this wave report, but I did want to provide a little bit of preamble, letting you guys know why I'm reporting here from home. I'm resting, and in part, my need to rest is due to the excessive heat, which is sapping my energy. I'm feeling, it's interesting because I didn't really feel this in the wintertime. There were a couple of times when I did have to rest in the wintertime, but it's interesting. I often think of summertime as like the time when, it's happy for waves, it's warm and nice environment, but this environment is not nice. It's too hot, it's too humid, drags you down, and I'm pretty sure many of you are feeling the same way in your environment, and there's a cause for that. That's fossil fuel burning, which is polluting the Earth's atmosphere with carbon dioxide. It's trapping more and more heat in the Earth's atmosphere and the Earth's oceans, and that's why we're seeing these heat waves. That's why we're seeing more and more extreme rainfall events, more and more extreme storms, because a hotter atmosphere holds more moisture. You got more movement of moisture, so you got more moisture in the form of precipitation in extreme rainfall and extreme storm events, but you also got more moisture in the form of evaporation, which rapidly evaporates from the land surface or more rapidly evaporates and causes more intense risk of fire. And in certain regions, you've got more intense risk of drought because of that evaporation. All right, so yeah, I've gotten the beat down from the heat. At surf session number 113 out of a goal of 150. I think I'm gonna crush that. I think my new interim goal is 200. I'm gonna rest today. I'm gonna get back to it tomorrow. Hopefully I can figure out a way to manage my schedule a little bit better and manage my resiliency to the heat a little bit better. I think I'm gonna start with some practices to try and help keep my body a little bit cooler, and not just hydration, but heat thermal management, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But we're not gonna dial back our goals. We're just gonna take a little rest as we have, last week and this week, and we're going to get back to it. All right, so let's get down to the wave report for today. As you can see, I'm not providing a live observation either for Instagram or for YouTube today. This is just me in my host TV hat today and my Cobra Kai t-shirt in my room. But getting down to the wave report for the wave monitors right now, at Nag's Head, we've got waves in the range of 2 foot with a slightly choppy condition on the ocean surface. Primary swell out of the east at 1.9 feet. That is an 11-second swell. Winds out of the east-southeast at 8 miles per hour. Air temperatures right now around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperatures at around 73. And we've gotten those cooler ocean water temperatures here in Nag's Head due to some offshore winds, which tend to push the Gulf Stream away, create an eddy in the Labrador Current and upwelling, which causes those cooler water conditions. It's very interesting because waters to the south of us are in the 80s and waters to the north of us are in the 80s, but we've got this little cool pool here just off of Nag's Head. Weather conditions right now cloudy with some thunderstorms hanging about. We've had a just kind of series of thunderstorms coming through here over the past few days. Temps right now around 80. We had highs in the middle 80s today. Light southeast winds in the range of about 3 to 5 miles per hour. This wind's going to be calming down throughout the day and into the evening. And by tomorrow morning, likely to be rather glassy with those light easterly winds. And ocean conditions likely to improve with those easterly winds as well. Likely to get that nice greener water and warmer water conditions as those easterly winds remain, at least for the next 12 to 24 hours. And then last of all, humidity right now in the range of about 85%, which is just brutal. Once those temperatures get up in the mid 80s, you get that humidity up around 85 to 90%, and temperatures in the mid to upper 80s, you really don't get as much evaporation at the surface of your skin, and your body has to work really hard to cool itself off, which can really put a drain on you, as I've experienced. All right, so heading on down south to Rodanthe, we've got waves in the range of about 2 feet with some slight chop. Primary swell out of the east at 1.7 feet. That is an 11-second swell. Winds out of the southeast at about 5 miles per hour. Air temperature is much warmer. It hasn't been raining there in Rodanthe, so the air temperatures are warmer. It's at 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperature is 80. And then heading on down south to Buxton right now, waves in the range of 2 feet as well. Semi-glassy. Primary swell out of the east at 2 feet. That is an 11-second swell. Winds out of the south-southeast at 6 miles per hour. Air temperature is all the way up at 88 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperature is 82. Weather conditions right now on Hatteras Island, mostly sunny. Temperatures in the mid to upper 80s. 20% chance of a thunderstorm this afternoon. Light southerly winds and humidity. I mean, nuts. In the range of about 80 to 90%. Like predicted humidity at Buxton and Hatteras Island this evening around 4 or 5 this afternoon, and into the early evening around 90%, with temperatures in the mid to upper 80s. That's going to be feels like temperatures easily near 100, the 100-degree mark, possibly worse with those high heat and high humidity readings. All right, so as we get into the day tomorrow, it looks like early morning is expected to be, or early to mid-morning is expected to be rather good. Swell conditions expected to build throughout the night and into tomorrow with some larger waves, possibly in the 2 to 3 foot or even 2 to 4 foot range. So tomorrow is looking pretty good. Hope to get out there with my GoPro and get some video of the surf for you guys, and hope to get surf session number 114 logged and get back to my aggressive time schedule, and also make sure I get enough sleep, because boy do I need it with this extra heat around. All right, so I did want to talk a little bit more about some climate related stuff. I know we started out with climate and we're going to end with climate, and for right now I'm going to start out with some hurricane weather and climate information. Well, tropical cyclone weather and climate information. We've got this tropical cyclone Don, who is right now weakened into a tropical depression. That dude is feeling a bit depressed as he gets into some colder waters. Me, myself, I'm feeling a little bit more depressed in my body as I'm getting into all this crazy heat. So I guess I have an inverse relationship with the storms. But yeah, Don is been tamped down a bit, but Don's an interesting story because he's doing this loop-de-loop through the central Atlantic Ocean. Don's location, for example, if you like put the Bermudas here where my finger is next to my bodyboard, and the Azores out here, Don's like kind of in between both of them and to the north. I guess Newfoundland's up here. So it's just, Don's just out here in the center of the North Atlantic. And what he is doing is he is starting to do this button hook loop, just this really wide loop, and heading on back up, eventually toward the north and west, according to the National Hurricane Center. And also according to the National Hurricane Center, Don is expected to strengthen once more into a tropical storm. Looks like Don's just going to be sitting out there for days and days, and possibly even a week or two, which is just pretty crazy. It's just kind of sitting out there as a tropical cyclone spinning out there. Really just a concern for the shipping lanes, but he also does help to provide a base swell in combination with the trade winds that are moving across the North Atlantic Ocean. So Don is kind of a wave story for the North Atlantic. And I'm going to go ahead and look at some wave monitors later to see how much Don is affecting the swell here in the Outer Banks. Probably not a huge amount, but we did have this massive mid-ocean storm in the wintertime pump up an amazing swell, even though it was like thousands of miles away. So I'm curious to see what Don's going to do, if Don's going to stick around for as long as the National Hurricane Center says he is. All right, so getting back to heat and climate, I did want to talk a little bit about climate impact and responsibility. We confront issues in the present day that oftentimes predatory special interests exploit to our harm. And one example of that is the recent COVID pandemic, where we had a number of people spreading smear and fear on doctors who are, trying to help save people's lives for personal profit, and spreading vaccine denial and, disinformation, and being amplified by all sorts of bad actors and profiting from that amplification. On the climate side, we have a number of bad actors, encouraged, I'm sad to say, by the fossil fuel industry to harass and intimidate and maliciously defame climate activists and climate scientists, and to profit from that harm. And so it has generated an industry cycle in which various unscrupulous people are incentivized to basically spread lies about climate change. But what it has also done is it has slowed the movement to a clean energy transition on a systemic level, and allowed bad actors that are aligned with the fossil fuel industry to try and basically blame victims. So basically saying things like, you are responsible for all the climate harms that are happening to you because you wear like a neoprene hat that was made from oil, even though if we had been more proactive on climate at the government level, we would have found alternatives to neoprene from oil by now, and various energy sources from fossil fuels by now. So it's a kind of like a harmful cycle of predatory delay and predatory media cycle of exploitation. And what's happening now is kind of interesting, and I just wanted to highlight one of the major events in the climate that you may or may not have heard about, and that is a heat wave that occurred in Europe last year in which 61,000 people died. So Europe last year got hit really hard with heat waves, and large parts of Europe don't even have air conditioning because they're not really used to having basically the Sahara Desert leap over the Mediterranean and provide or inflict Europe with Sahara Desert heat. But that's kind of what happens sometimes now with so much greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and the Earth system being warmed up as much as it has. And so more than 60,000 people died last year in Europe because of extreme heat. And we had this group of 2,000 people in Switzerland who are now suing the government of Switzerland for not acting fast enough to protect the public on the issue of climate change, to protect the public from climate harms. And when you start to get so many people impacted by these massive events, in the climate, the question of liability does come up, and it's pretty clear in my mind who is liable, and it is those in the fossil fuel industry who have profited from the harm and the predatory delay that they have inflicted upon us through their various media efforts and political efforts, and it is the politicians who are unscrupulous enough to provide these harmful interests with a platform in government to result in that delay that results in harm, hospitalization, and death. I find that interesting that there's this lawsuit in Switzerland. And along those lines, Mark Ruffalo recently today encouraged lawsuits against fossil fuel CEOs for their role in worsening the climate crisis and causing this predatory delay and inaction, which we have seen that has now resulted in a climate state that is much more dangerous for all of us. And I'm going to inject my own opinion here, having a house on the coastline. And I know the fossil fuel industry wants me to say, oh, it's my fault because, I have a neoprene hat or something like that. But I'm not going to fall for it. There are many of us who've been working as hard as we can for many years to try to get governments to move more rapidly and work to help mass deploy clean energy more rapidly and tamp down the carbon emissions and help the drawdown of carbon from the atmosphere by revitalizing the Earth system, as the scientists say are possible. And we've been advocates for the scientists and for the climate activists themselves, activists like Greta Thunberg. So I'm not going to take the blame for the climate crisis when I know very clearly who the author of the climate crisis is. And it is the harmful industry that has caused the predatory delay. So I've got to say that I do side with Mark Ruffalo and the people in Switzerland right now who are suing their government for more responsible action on climate and for the harms that are right now occurring as a result of the predatory delay that has been inflicted upon us, all of us who have not profited from the fossil fuel industry, and directly as a result. So yeah, being here on the coastline is a bit of a I don't know, just I guess knowing about climate and living on the coastline is a pretty real thing. I mean, it's you can kind of see what's going to happen over the next few decades if we continue to have the predatory delay that we're seeing. And I think a lot of people who are in homes on the coastlines, or who vacation on the coastlines, or who have any kind of interest on the coastlines, and much of humanity, most of humanity, I think it's like something like 75% of humanity lives within 50 to 100 miles of the coastline. So, I mean, we're pretty much all there. And at the very least, we know someone who lives there. And I mean, the coastlines themselves aren't the only places that are vulnerable to climate change, as people in a certain town in Pennsylvania that was just inundated by an extraordinary thunderstorm amped up by climate change over recent days will tell you. Or any of those of us who are suffering from extreme heat, either from the little troubles like me, a little bit of extra exhaustion and fatigue due to the heat, or people who are being sent to the hospital right now due to a heat injury, or to a heat complication due to the fact that their body starts to be unable to deal with things like respiratory ailments and heart ailments due to a higher heat load on the body. So all that's directly related to fossil fuel burning. And as are the bigger, more powerful hurricanes, they're now causing insurance companies to flee from Florida. And all this is related to surfing, because those of us who do surf, we are right there at the edge of the boundary between the ocean and the land. We are directly, whether we realize it or not, experiencing the effects of climate change on the waves and the storms that generate those waves. And those of us who do surf, we live near the coastline oftentimes, and our homes and the beaches that we love are endangered by the harmful and predatory delay on climate action that we see now as well. So yeah, I thought this would be a good day to rest and to stay home and talk a little bit about the larger mission. I mean, of course, the larger mission is always to surf, but it is also to save surfing for the next generation, and to save beaches for the next generation, so that we can all enjoy the beauty and health of nature that gives us beauty and health, and that we can share with our friends and those we love, and hopefully on and on for all time. I mean, that should be the goal, right? All right, so thanks for joining me for this session of the OBX Wave Report from my little wave cave, I guess, as it were. Relatively serious discussion, but I've got faith in you guys. I know you guys are pretty tough. You can handle it. And I've got faith in your goodness at heart. I know you'll help to carry a positive message forward and encourage others to do the right thing, and help to mass deploy the clean energy systems that will save our coastlines, that will tamp down the extreme heat that's affecting so many of us. And I know that you will care about the Earth system and all of the richness and beauty and wonder and wealth that it provides for us all. And I know that you'll help to revitalize that so that it can draw down the carbon in the atmosphere and bring us back into a better state where we're not facing heat waves that kill 60,000 people in Europe in one summer or worse, and send so many people into so much trouble and trauma across this nation, as we've seen recently during the extreme weather events. So thank you for joining me for this session of the OBX Wave Report, and I will be back with you shortly.